Hi everybody, welcome to the second video in the series looking at the Robin 400 aircraft, and this is one that concentrates on the Stream Deck and X's and O's and how I've set it up to emulate the cockpit of this aircraft. So let's go and have a quick look at what the layout looks like. And this is how my Stream Deck is programmed for this one. So before I get started, I've had a couple of people asking where do I get my graphics from, or can I publish the graphics? And I'm not going to publish anything. I've got nowhere to put it really. And also I'm trying to make sure that you are self-sufficient. You can do this for yourself if you go into an aircraft that nobody else has published the graphics for. So I'm running this in developer mode, and at the moment I can get to my software, and I use a piece of software that comes with Windows 10, I believe. I don't think I got it from anywhere else, called Snip and Sketch. And what I do is I prepare the view, so I get into my instrument panel view, and for instance, if I wanted to take a snapshot of these switches so I can put them onto the Stream Deck keys, getting the lighting right is part of the problem. So you really need to play with the weather and get the sun in the right direction, or I'm going to turn on the lights and get some lighting on it, so we get that as good as we can, and you can zoom in as much as you like to get the best resolution. And then back to that snipping program, I just try and take it as close as I can so I don't have to do any editing afterwards. Take the screenshot and save it somewhere sensible, and I do one for the off, and then I would turn it on and take another screenshot, and that's pretty much all I do. Some of them work better than others. So the black on black doesn't work particularly well, particularly doesn't show up that brilliantly on the Stream Deck, but I'll show you the trick that I use to do that. Some of the views you can't get a straight on view, you get a slightly skewed view of it. For instance, this one here, but it would be good enough to go onto the Stream Deck. It doesn't have to be perfect, but that'll do the trick. Okay, so that's how I do it. It's relatively simple to set that up. So let's get back and have a look at how my Stream Deck is set up and what I've solved, what I haven't solved. Firstly, this button here is, I called it hanger, but it's just a profile switch, which is a standard Stream Deck function, and I've got a profile called the MFS plane choice, and that's basically every time I've completed the profile of an aircraft, I put it in here. So this is going to need a bit of tidying up and structuring as I get more done. This is what I'm still working on, and here's some old ones in here that I've worked on, and I've changed my methods, I've changed the way things work, or Microsoft have changed a few things, so they're just there for reference for me. But I'm going to click on here on the Robin and go into the Robin profile. So that's what that one is. These buttons here, basically, if I go out, are these ones here. The light switches here are on the Stream Deck, and I'll come to those in a bit, and they're not that hard to sort out. This one here is the one I've been working on to try and make this work better. Let's there we go, bring that in. This is the annunciator panel, and at the moment you can see that I've got a few issues. These are okay, I've got them up it's switched on at the moment, but these ones here I haven't got good pressure, I haven't got my engine started, so I'm going to start the engines up. And if you haven't met this keyboard shortcut before, Control E will start your engines. and get everything sorted out for you. It saves you going through the entire procedure and clicking on all, this whole sequence to get things started. So we're alive and well, and we've got throttle control and everything. Okay, so I've got one lighter light. This button here is been causing me a few interesting problems. That it's a three-way switch. It's got a day, and if I click upwards, a night setting. So you may be able to see that the light there gets brighter in the daytime and dims a bit in the night. It's also got a third option down here, which is like a spring pressure switch that it'll hold down while you're holding it down, and it'll spring up as soon as you let go. So if I hold it down, it does a test of all the lamps, and when I let go, it flicks back up. So not strictly speaking a toggle, but that's what it does. Usually to find out what's going on with that, I would ask it to watch the simulator events. So if we clear that, just so it's not so cluttered. When it's in nighttime mode, let's go up to nighttime, it switches the annunciator off with a value of 0. And if I put it to daytime, again the annunciator switches off, but this time with a value of 1. And the last one is if I hold it down and go down, you'll see that it switches the annunciator on with a value of 2, and then when I let go, it switches it off with a value of 1. So it looked like I should be able to control that. But if I go back into my scripting again here and ask it to watch simulator variables, if I hunt down the variable for the annunciator, it's this one here. In fact, if I go back to that again, I'll select that variable, the annunciator. It gives me a warning actually here, currently not used in this simulation. Well, it sort of is and sort of isn't. That if we watch this variable, nothing happens when I switch between the day and the night time in terms of the variable. But if I pull it down to the test version, you can see that it goes for 1 for test and 0 when it's off. So it does sort of do something, not quite sure what. Anyway, back to my Stream Deck, which is where all this blethering is going on about. I created 3 test buttons, and one which is supposed to switch the annunciator on within a value 2, so that should put it into test mode. This is switch off with a value of 1, which should put it into day mode, and this is switch off and put it into night mode, is what we would hope would happen. So I'll press this button here on my Stream Deck, and you can see that it's gone quite happily into test mode here. And if I try pressing the second one across, that should put it into daytime mode, which it seems to do. So that's okay. So I've got the switch on, switch off, and this third button here should put it into night mode, and nothing happens when I press it. What it actually does is it seems to read the position of this switch. If I manually put this switch into nighttime mode, you can see that's now dimmed. If I put it into test mode by pressing this button here, test mode comes up. Now if I put it back into ordinary mode, if we take it out of test mode, and I do it pressing this button here, it's actually gone straight to night mode. It's ignored this event value here completely, and I'm not quite sure why. So I've got the ability to go to test mode and whatever the switch mode is here, but that's all it does. So back to my Stream Deck, let's have a look at tidying this up. These 3 here were just me testing how it works. So what I've decided to do is to create 1 button here rather than 3, as I can only go between test and normal. So I've using a toggle switch here, that I'm doing the annunciator switch toggle. It doesn't matter if I send a 1 or a 0, it makes no difference, to be honest. and I'm reading this variable here, the position of the annunciator switch, so it knows whether to draw the on or the off here. So I've just called it test. So what I'll do is I will just click on this one here and show you this working. So one click toggles it into test mode and then back into normal mode. So that's all I've managed to be able to do at the moment with that. So just for those people who've not actually seen how you do this, how do you get those in here? Well, the best way to do it is from X's and O's. And I use the scripting editor, which looks like this. Let's get rid of some of the clutter. So scripting, RPN, scripts editor brings this up. And I've got the ability then, let me just move that out of the way and bring up my Stream Deck again. I've got the ability with this now to insert both a sim event and a sim variable as needed. So to insert the sim event here, I would track down my annunciator and I'm using this one here, the toggle. So click on it once, right click to copy it to my clipboard, and then that would normally be blank, and put that in here. And this is a K event, a key event. And again, let's have a look at the sim events here. Let's track that down. No way of knowing that it's a K event, but you assume that it is unless it comes up as an HTML event. I've got it in other videos how you can look at that, but that's what it is. So it's as if you pressed a key on your keyboard. That's exactly what we're trying to achieve there. Okay, and to do this one here, to put the annunciator switch in, we're going to read a variable A. So it's insert a sim variable. And again, we'll look up the annunciator. And it's that one there. And you can see that this is an A variable. There are other variables around. We do the same thing though. We just click, so it's copied, and then we should be able to paste that into there. So that's what the paste, Control V would paste that into there. One thing you need to watch out for if you're new to doing this with Axes and O's and Stream Deck, using the Lorby add-ons to Stream Deck, you must remember to submit all the programming elements that you put in. You don't need to submit the title, test, or the graphics, but you do need to submit any changes you make to these areas here. Right, so the graphics bit, let's show how I'll put the graphics in just for completeness, but I won't do this for all the buttons, just doing this as a sort of reminder or introduction for people who haven't seen this before. It's got two states. It's got the off state and the on state there. So I've got this button here. In fact, I'm going to use this one, I think. So this is my off button, so I'll drop that into there, and let's put the on button into there. And so now it should draw whether this is in the off or the on position, reading that variable there. So it's kind of working upside down a little bit, but it's not moving the thing here. So perhaps I should put them the other way around. So let's put the up version there and the down version here. Perhaps that reflects more accurately whether it's in test mode or not. So that's how we do that one. Okay, again, let's a bit of tidying up here. The landing lights. up till now, up till recently, I don't know why it's gone wrong. What I would have done before is to find out what's controlling these switches. I would have watched the events from the simulator, and when I click on those, it would come up on here and show me what's happening, but nothing. It's not picking that event up. It's picking up other events. If I turn the battery on and off, that one's being picked up okay. So I'm not quite sure what's happened since the latest update, that these are not being picked up. Luckily I've explored them and I know what's going on with them, so I'm sort of bringing that knowledge now that I gained previously. So let's bring up my Stream Deck again. I can show you that it's working if I receive the events not from clicking on the graphic here, but by clicking on the button on my Stream Deck that's already been programmed. You see that it's moved that's toggled fine, that's working, and it's working here and it's being seen. So I'm not quite sure what's happening behind the scenes here that we can't pick up that event at the moment with X's and O's. Waiting for a little bit of support back on that one to find out what's going on. Anyway, this is the event that we're sending. It's a toggle, and we're toggling the landing lights on and off. It doesn't matter what value we send, makes no difference at all. But we do need to read the variable, so it's landing lights toggle, but it's light landing boolean. But you'll pick that up if you do your insert, copying it from the RPN scripts editor window. It'll put that in correctly for you, right? And it's an A variable, and 1 is on and 0 is off. You just tell it which is 1, and then it knows which of the graphics to draw, and that just works. So again, don't forget to press submit. So that's landing light. Taxi light, very much the same thing. Toggle taxi lights, and we look at the light taxi variable to see if it's on or not. Strobe is same concept, but for some reason it's not consistent language. It said landing lights toggle, landing taxi, toggle taxi land, and just inconsistent language. It's not nice. Strobes just says strobes toggle, doesn't even say light, but it does say light strobe when we're checking here for the variable. And then nav lights, toggle nav lights, light nav. So those work apps pretty well, just to set them as toggles. And pitot heat toggle, and check whether the pitot heat is on or not. So that just works. Those toggles work absolutely fine. Battery over here, toggle master battery, that works fine. You've got to pay a bit of attention here though, that the electrical master battery, there can be more than one battery, so we have to type this little bit in here. When we copy that in, it won't have the :1, so that's indexing it to say we're looking at battery 1 to find out whether it's on or off. So you need to watch out for that one. Toggle master alternator, and again it's a slightly unusual variable that we're going to read, the general engine master alternator number 1. So when we pick it up from the RPN scripts editor, if we just do alternator, general engine master alternator, and it says index, we'll put the word index in, and we need to delete index and put in the number that we're after into this section here. Right, so that's that one. And worked our way across here. That's done, that's fine. Getting it over to here, this switch here controls whether the avionics are on. They're very simple avionics, but it controls whether it's on or off. So I'm going to click on this button here, and it comes on and it lights up. Now we need to be a little bit careful with this one, because it usually we only have to put in an avionics master toggle or something like that. But this one's slightly different because we have to run this bit of code. We actually need to run it the very first time we switch on. This electrical execute procedure number 1 has to be run once to get the circuit alive, and from then on the toggle works. But this is the way I've discovered to work it, using an on-off rather than a toggle. And so we've got 2 separate events, one event to switch it on and one event to switch it off. So it's the avionics master 1 set, and we're setting it on or setting it off, and it acts pretty much like a toggle. And we will be looking at the avionics master switch, again indexed to number 1, so watch out for that index, and we're telling it it's the on value. But what I'm doing here is I'm not sending a key command. I've actually written a little script, 2 lines of it basically, that it's going to send a 1 to the to here, to K electrical executive procedure there. And that this one here is actually connected to the next command. We're going to send a 1 to the avionics master 1 set. So we're going to do this enabling thing, which we only really need to do the first time we switch the button on, but it makes no difference. If we switch it on, if we do it every time, it doesn't do any harm. So there's no way of detecting this is the first time you've switched this button. So it needs that command, otherwise the switch will move but nothing will happen. It won't light up here at all. So that's what we need to send, and then send the avionics master 1 set to switch it on and off. So if we now look at this button here, I'm going to press it again, and you can see that this here is switching on and off quite happily. So there's a little script here that we're saying run this script every time we do the on, or if he's off, it will just switch the switch off, and that's it. Okay, so that's a slightly odd one. These ones are gauges that I've dealt with on a previous video. So if you need to go and see how gauges are made, go and look at that one. These are gauges I've made. I've got the switches here, but again, there's a whole video about that, and I'm dealing with the light switches in a different way. They're there, they work, but I'll show you later on when I come to do my X-Touch Mini video that I've actually got them on there rather than on here. The fuel pump, toggle electrical fuel pump. And it doesn't matter, again, it doesn't matter what we send, as long as we send something, it'll toggle it on and off. And we need to read a variable, which again is the general engine fuel pump switch, and we have to put the number 1 index in there so it knows which of the fuel pumps, because yeah, there may be more than one, there isn't, but there could be, and the value for that is is 1. So the fuel pump is relatively easy to set up, and I'll just show you those again. It toggles the electrical fuel pump. We read the general engine fuel pump switch to find out whether it's on or not. That was a previous attempt at working out how this avionics switch is going to work, so ignore that here. This is my little test patch area at the moment. This is another gauge that I've dealt with, or you can pick up from flightsim.to. You can pick up some of these gauges here. They're for free of charge. They're downloadable. Do a hunt around for AAO or Axis and O's on flightsim.to, and you'll find those. Okay, these are the magneto switches, and basically this one here says when I click on this one, turn the magneto key to the left, so it just decrements it. It does nothing else, so it just goes down, and this one is an increment, it just goes up. And in fact, because of how that works, if you keep on pressing it, although it's not marked on here that it will start, if you keep on pressing on it, it will effectively start as if you press that start button. So it does work, it does that. if I go back to my Stream Deck for that, the graphics don't actually move. If I press the up button or the down button, the graphics there don't move. They move quite happily here. If I press the down and the up, that works quite well there. So I couldn't be bothered you can't really do the graphics because the graphics only have at best 2 modes, on and off. So you'd have to turn it into a gauge like this where it moves around a certain number of degrees to make it move. And I don't use don't use them that often to worry about it. And you can see the results here actually in the cockpit. This one here is the fuel selector switch. It's an on-off switch because it's only in 2 positions. So the fuel selector you set it to 1 to be on, and you set it to 0 to be off. So that's what it does. You press it on, you press it off. Of course, it has to read, know whether it's currently on or off, so it knows which one to draw. And this is the strange one that you'll need to put in here. Again, you'll pick it up from the scripting here. So if we look for selector or something like that, so if we're going to look at that for that variable. So we just try to narrow this down as much as we can. Apply that filter, and it'll be a fuel variable, probably. Once you've got these one window open, you can't move the other one until you've moved it. Or we'll look for recip. We could look for. And there's loads of those here to choose from. So again, choosing a sensible recip, eng, fuel, tank, selector, index, that's the one that we're after. So copy that, drop that into there, make sure we index it as number 1 so it's reading the correct tank, although there is only 1 tank, but it doesn't know that. So you don't have to remember them, type them in, you can hunt them down. But that's the one that will turn this on and off. Then we've got the starter switch. And it is starter 1 set. And it's just an event. There's no on or off about it. You just hold your finger down on it. And that's what the repeat is about. Just hold your finger down and keep it held down until the engine starts. So starter 1 set. And it's a 1 there, just a key event. But it is an event. This is an on off. This is an event. This is an event. This is a toggle. Yeah. So these are the different functions they do. These are just my test beds for trying to work out how this annunciator is going to work. And the last one across here is my parking brake. So I've got this as a toggle, toggling the parking brakes. Funny it doesn't say toggle, it just says parking brakes. But there's consistency for you. And we're looking for the parking brake indicator, which is the variable that we're going to read to find out whether the parking brake is on or not. And again, I've taken 2 graphics for that. One when it's in the off position, and one when on is pulled out and off is pushed in. So they're the graphics for that. Now, I said I was going to show you how I make sure that I can see whether this is switched on or not. So again, if I look at my landing one, not only can you have the 2 graphics for on and off, but here where you've typed land, you can have 2 different bits of text. If you wanted to, you could write on and off in there. So for each of these, you've got your own ability to label it, but you can also change the font and the colour and even the position of it if you wanted it to be at the top when it's off and at the bottom when it's on. That'll be feasible to do that one. So let's just try that. So we do the land on and off. So we can change the position of the text if we wanted to as well. But that's the conclusion I've come to works best for me. Let's change that position back to the top where I like it. So I can see at a glance whether it's on or off, rather than trying to work out the graphic, which doesn't really show particularly well in the black and white. So I've done that for those ones here. The battery one, let's have a look at battery. Yeah, I could see that that's on and off pretty well, so I haven't changed the text. I could do that as well, that trick there. But I've done that, as you can see, with the on-off on this as well. So I can see what's going on there. So that's how I've sort of improved the graphics anyway. So that's really about it. That's everything that we need for this one. I've got a toggle here for the for views, so I can go through and I can go for an external view. Let's move that out of the way, and again I can move around my aircraft and choose different views depending which button I press. And I've done a whole video on that as well, of how that's set up, and most of them work absolutely fine. It's actually got quite a nice number of fixed camera views. If I just swing that out of the way. For some aircraft they're not all defined, so this one's got quite a few of them. And you can switch to drone view, and you can actually drive the drone from here. Drone up, drone down should work. Are you going to work? Yeah. It's a little difficult because it's relying on the key presses. It's emulating key presses, so you do have to have that window active. You have to click in that window. If I click into here, and if this is the active window now, none of those controls will work, because all the keyboard presses will be going to this piece of software, not this piece of software. So it's not particularly desirable. I must admit I don't use it very often, because I drive it as I'm doing now. I'm driving it mostly from my joystick when it's in drone mode, to move that around. Okay, so let's go back to the cockpit view. There we are. So I think I've dealt with all of those. These ones here I'm emulating on my X-Touch Mini, so that'll be the next video. These are on the X-Touch Mini, so's that. So anything that basically needs twiddling and twirling are on the X-Touch Mini. And these are obviously, that's coming from my throttle quadrants, so is the mixture, and so is the carb heat. And that's not working at the moment. Wonder what's happened to that one. Let's have a look. That should be working there, and it's not working, so I need to look at why that's not working. Well, it's seeing it there quite happily, but it's not working. Here it is there. So that should be working now. Yes, it's working now on the screen. It lost its allocation for some reason. So let's just deal with that while we're here, because that's the only place we're going to deal with this. So I've clicked on here to add a new assignment. It's called the anti-ice gradual set for engine 1. That's a bit weird, but that's what it is. I don't know if, yes, it is coming up. I can watch that event actually. Let's close that window. Let's clear that list. So if I move this on here, oops, not throttle. Yeah, it's the anti-ice gradual setting for engine number 1. That's what we're setting, and let's bring that back in. So that's the event that I'm setting, and it just automatically finds it as soon as I'm in here, and as soon as I move that throttle there, it detects that it's the middle part of my float, my yoke system, that it's found the middle lever. What I do have to do is to tell it that I only want it to send a value if it's been changed, if I've actually done something to it, and I have to tell it what the axis maximum and minimum is, and I get to see that here by moving this here, so it goes from 0 up to 16384. So I type that in here because if I watch here, the values that come from my joystick are higher. It's finer control, it's higher resolution, so I tell it to, and it automatically scales it, so that that scales the maximum there to the maximum there, and that's how that works. Okay, so nothing else needs to be done. So it's a question just of putting that event in there, which you could do the search for. We know it's the gradient, it's that one there that we're going to drop into here, and twiddle the lever and it finds it automatically, and then work out what the maximum is that it's expecting on the screen, so that it scales that value to that value correctly. Okay, and that's it. So let's close that down, and now we can test it, and I can see that it's working. Okay, so that's how you set up an axis here. So I'm going to deal with all this in the next video. This is how I set up the X-Touch Mini controller. Okay, so I'll see you in the next video.